Sarah, they surrounded us. What are we going to do? Calm down, Mike. Rex and Bullet know what to do. These bastards think we're easy prey. But there are 10 of them, and we have what they will never have: honor and loyalty. These dogs have been through hell in Afghanistan with me. They won't let us down. The sound of breaking glass. Sarah, they broke the window. Rex, Bullet, protect! Furious barking and shouting. Oh God, what are they doing? The most interesting part is yet to come. Stay with us to find out how it all ended. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. The sun was slowly setting over the endless expanses of Texas, turning the sky into a canvas of bright red, orange, and golden stripes. The air shimmered from the heat. The temperature still held at 42 degrees Celsius, despite the day drawing to a close. The asphalt of Interstate 10 radiated warmth, creating a mirage in the distance where the road seemed to dissolve into the sky. An 18-wheeler Peterbilt 479 sped down this desolate highway, leaving behind a long cloud of dust and exhaust fumes. The mighty Caterpillar C15 diesel engine hummed steadily under the hood, devouring mile after mile of endless American road. Behind the wheel of this steel giant sat 34-year-old Sarah Mitchell, a woman with short chestnut hair, a sun-kissed face, and steel-colored eyes that told a story full of pain, loss, and unyielding will. Sarah was not an ordinary truck driver. She had 8 years of service in the U.S. Army, including 4 deployments to Afghanistan as a K-9 service sergeant. She had gone through the hell of war, seen the death of comrades, smelled gunpowder and blood, heard the whistling of bullets overhead. But the most terrible betrayal awaited her not on the battlefield, but in military offices, where people in clean uniforms traded soldiers' lives for money. 3 years ago, Sarah left the Army under circumstances officially termed early discharge for family reasons. In reality, she had deserted, stealing military transport, and saving 2 combat dogs from euthanasia, who had become her family. Now she made a living as an independent truck driver, specializing in particularly important and dangerous cargo. In the spacious cabin of the truck, specially modified for transporting service animals, lay 2 massive German shepherds, Rex and Bullet. That was the name of these 4-legged war veterans. They rested on special orthopedic mats, their powerful bodies relaxed, but their ears were constantly moving, picking up every sound from the road. Rex was the older of the 2, an 8-year-old male weighing 87 pounds with a noble face and intelligent brown eyes. A distinctive scar ran through his left eye, a mark from a shrapnel of an improvised explosive device that he detected just moments before detonation, saving the lives of an entire platoon of Marines. This scar was not just a mark, it was a medal of bravery etched into living flesh. Rex's service collar boasted real military awards: the Dickin Medal, the highest honor for animals for bravery in combat, the insignia of U.S. military working dogs, the Medal for Meritorious Service, and a special badge of the K-9 Corps. Each of these awards was paid for with blood and sweat. Each told a story of lives saved. Bullet was younger, a 5-year-old male, leaner and more energetic. His story was particularly tragic. As a puppy, he was found by Sarah in a destroyed Afghan village of Kajaki, dying next to the body of his mother, who had been shot by a Taliban sniper. Sarah nursed him back to health, feeding him baby food that she begged from military medics. Bullet became not just a dog, he was her child, raised from the first days of life. Despite his tragic beginning, Bullet grew into an exceptional combat dog. His hearing was so acute that he could hear the sound of a cocked weapon from 200 yards away. His sense of smell allowed him to find hidden explosives buried up to 8 feet deep. During his service, he discovered 23 homemade bombs and saved the lives of 31 American soldiers. Both dogs went through the nightmare of the Afghan war. They participated in hundreds of combat operations, from patrolling the Hindu Kush Mountains to storming fortified Taliban positions in the Helmand Valley. They witnessed death, sensed the smell of fear, and understood the value of every saved life. But the war ended for them not with a heroic return home, but with a bureaucratic nightmare. During the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan, military command decided to reduce costs for the transportation of animals. Many combat dogs who had faithfully served the American Army were to be handed over to Afghan security forces or euthanized due to quarantine issues. The reason was simple and cynical. Their transportation to the U.S. would cost millions of dollars, which was deemed economically unfeasible. Sarah could not allow this. Using her connections in military logistics and the help of sympathetic officers, she organized the official transportation of Rex and Bullet through a military dog adoption program. The paperwork was completed correctly, but with some deadline violations, which technically made the transportation illegal. When this was discovered, Sarah received a disciplinary reprimand and was forced to resign of her own accord instead of having her contract extended. Officially, it was not desertion, but her military career ended under a cloud of scandal. Now, 3 years later, they were making a living through honest work. Sarah obtained a Class A commercial driver's license, permits for transporting hazardous materials, medical cargo, and government shipments. Her reputation was impeccable. In 3 years of work, not a single delivery was disrupted, and no cargo was damaged or stolen. Sarah specialized in particularly important and delicate cargo, medical equipment for hospitals, chemical reagents for laboratories, components for military technology. Clients were willing to pay premium rates for the guarantee of safety and timely delivery. The presence of 2 trained combat dogs provided a level of security that ordinary security services could not match. Today's shipment was especially important. In the insulated refrigerated trailer was medical equipment worth a total of $850,000. Modern ventilators, telemetry-enabled cardiac monitors, automatic defibrillators, surgical instruments, and other vital devices. All this equipment was destined for a veterans hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. In the intensive care unit of that hospital lay 12 severely wounded soldiers, recently evacuated from Syria after a suicide truck bombing near an American base. Among them was Sergeant Jorge Martinez, a young Puerto Rican who once served in the same unit as Sarah in Afghanistan. The same cheerful guy who always shared his chocolate bars with Rex and Bullet, calling them his best friends in this cursed country. Every minute of delay could cost human lives. The old hospital equipment was barely coping with the influx of wounded. Several patients were already in critical condition. Therefore, Sarah had been driving non-stop for 10 hours, planning to reach Phoenix by midnight. "How are you doing, boys?" Sarah quietly asked, glancing in the special mirror that allowed her to see the dogs without turning her head. Rex slowly opened one eye and looked at his owner. His gaze was calm but alert. 8 years of life, 6 of which were spent in a combat zone, had taught him never to fully relax. Even in the most peaceful moments, a part of his consciousness remained on guard, ready for instant action. The scar over his left eye looked particularly prominent in the rays of the setting sun. Every time Sarah looked at it, she remembered that day in Kandahar province when Rex saved the lives of 23 Marines. The patrol was moving along a narrow mountain path when Rex suddenly stopped and began barking furiously, pointing at a pile of rocks off the side of the road. The soldiers didn't understand his signal and continued moving, but Rex didn't give up. He lunged toward the suspicious spot and began to dig, despite commands to stop. The explosion rang out when he was only a few feet away from the homemade explosive device. A shard tore through his eyelid and damaged his cornea, but Rex survived, and the armored vehicle that was supposed to pass through that spot in a few minutes remained intact. For this feat, Rex received the Dickin Medal, the highest award for animals for bravery in combat. He became one of the few dogs in the history of the American military to be honored with such a prestigious award. But to Sarah, he was not a war hero, but simply a loyal friend who always had her back. Bullet lay nearby, his head resting on his paws, but his ears were constantly moving, picking up every sound from the road. Even while dozing, he remained vigilant. His keen hearing could distinguish the sound of a specific vehicle's engine among dozens of others, recognize the intonations of a human voice, and assess the level of threat by the tone of speech. Bullet's collar also sported military awards, the Service Commendation Medal, the K-9 Corps insignia, and a commemorative badge for life-saving, which he received for discovering a stash of explosives in a school in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif. Sarah remembered that day particularly clearly. Their unit had received information that the Taliban had planted explosives in a school, where a meeting of local elders with American officers was to take place. Regular metal detectors showed nothing. The explosives were hidden in special plastic containers. Bullet discovered the stash 10 minutes before the meeting was to begin. 20 kilograms of plastic explosive were hidden in the school's basement, and the detonator was set to trigger from a mobile phone signal. If the explosion had occurred, not only American soldiers would have died, but also hundreds of civilians, including children. Sarah smiled, looking at her four-legged companions. These dogs were all that she had left from her former life. Her parents had died in a car accident on the highway in Ohio while she was serving her second tour in Afghanistan. She found out about it only a week after the funeral. The military mail was slow, and the command did not deem it necessary to interrupt combat operations due to the personal issues of the sergeant. She had no brothers or sisters, no husband either. 8 years of military service, constant deployments, and relocations did not lend themselves to starting a family. A few romances ended before they even began. Men couldn't handle her character, hardened by military discipline, or simply couldn't understand why dogs were more important to her than people. Friends remained in the military or scattered across different states after discharge. Sarah kept in touch with only a few comrades, but they rarely met. Military friendships are strong, but war changes people, and not always for the better. Some fell into alcoholism, some joined private military companies, some simply couldn't adapt to civilian life. Only Rex and Bullet were always with her, in joy and in sorrow, in moments of triumph and despair. They shared with her the horrors of war and the burdens of civilian life. They were not just pets. They were family, brothers in arms, the only beings on earth who understood her without words. The truck approached the small town of Van Horn in Texas, located right on the border with New Mexico. Ahead, the first lights appeared, several roadside gas stations, a couple of motels and diners for truck drivers. It was the perfect place for a quick stop, to refuel, stretch the legs, let the dogs relieve themselves, and drink some water. "Well, it's time for a break," Sarah said, turning on the blinker. The Quick Jack gas station was typical for these places. A large paved area, several pumps for cars, 2 special pumps for trucks with high-octane diesel fuel. Bright neon signs advertised coffee, hot dogs, and the best hamburgers in Texas. A small shop sold everything necessary for the road ahead, from car parts to aspirin. Next to the gas station was Mary's Diner, a long single-story building with large windows and a flashing sign. Inside, silhouettes of people could be seen at the tables, waitresses with coffee pots in hand, loaders and truck drivers resting after long hours on the road. The smell of fried meat and coffee mingled with the aroma of diesel fuel and dust. Several vehicles were already in the parking lot. 4 trucks, 2 pickups, an old sedan, and a few cars belonging to locals. Their drivers were likely dining at the diner or resting in the sleeping compartments of their trucks. A typical scene for that time of day in such a place. But Sarah's attention was immediately drawn to a group of motorcycles parked at the far edge of the lot, away from the main lighting. 5 heavy Harley-Davidsons with shiny chrome, leather saddles, and loud exhaust pipes. Even in the dim light of the street lamps, it was clear that these were not ordinary tourist bikes, but machines belonging to serious people. Next to the motorcycles stood their owners, 5 men in black leather vests covered with patches from various biker clubs. Even from a distance, Sarah could make out the characteristic symbols: a skull with crossbones, an eagle with outstretched wings, inscriptions in Gothic script, swastikas, and other extremist symbols. The men were smoking, conversing among themselves, and closely watching every vehicle that entered the gas station. Their behavior betrayed professional criminals, too much scrutiny of their surroundings, too convenient a position for a quick retreat, too nervous hand movements towards their belts, where weapons were likely concealed. Rex and Bullet instantly sensed the change in their owner's mood. Both dogs got up from their spots and began to carefully study the situation through the tinted windows of the cab. Their noses eagerly inhaled the air, analyzing the scents. Their ears turned in different directions, catching every sound. Years of combat training had taught them to recognize danger long before it became obvious to a human. "What's up, boys? Do you sense something suspicious?" Sarah quietly asked, not taking her eyes off the group of bikers. Rex let out a barely audible growl, not threatening, but warning. His experience told him that these people posed a potential threat. Too much wariness in their stances, too much attention to the foreign vehicles, too convenient a position for a sudden attack. Bullet took up a characteristic combat stance, slightly leaning his muscular body forward. His youth and energy were compensated by phenomenal instincts and impeccable training. Every muscle in his body was ready for instant action. Sarah knew her dogs well. Over the years of service together, she had learned to read their body language better than human speech. If Rex and Bullet sensed a threat, then a threat truly existed. Their instincts had never let her down. In Afghanistan, They had saved her life more than once by sensing ambushes and sniper positions. "All right," she whispered, parking the truck at the far fuel pump, from where there was a good view of the entire area and several routes for a quick retreat. "Let's be on guard. We'll refuel quickly and move on." Sarah turned off the engine and for a moment allowed herself to assess the situation. The cargo in the trailer was securely protected. Electronic locks, GPS tracker, alarm system with direct communication to the dispatch service. The documents were in perfect order. The insurance covered all possible risks, including assault and theft. But the most important protection was not technical means, but two-tailed war veterans who would unhesitatingly give their lives for their owner. Rex and Bullet had gone through things that these bikers could hardly imagine. They had fought real terrorists in the mountains of Afghanistan, endured artillery shelling, and participated in assaults on fortified positions. As Sarah opened the cabin door, she felt the hot evening air of Texas hit her face. The temperature was still around 35 degrees Celsius, despite the sun already setting on the horizon. The air was dry and dusty, infused with the smells of diesel fuel, scorching asphalt, and roadside vegetation. Rex and Bullet instantly sprang to their feet, their bodies tensing like steel springs. Sarah fastened sturdy, military-grade nylon leashes to their collars, not ordinary walking leashes, but special tactical ones designed for serious loads. "Easy, boys," she whispered as she descended from the cabin. "Behave yourselves, but be ready." Both dogs jumped down onto the asphalt and took positions on either side of Sarah. Rex on the left, Bullet on the right. This was a standard protective formation, honed through hundreds of training sessions and combat operations. In this position, they could control the maximum space around their owner and instantly react to threats from any direction. Sarah approached the fuel tank and began the refueling procedure. The truck's tank held 300 gallons of diesel fuel, so the process would take at least 10 to 15 minutes. She tried not to look in the direction of the bikers, but out of the corner of her eye, she saw them starting to show increased interest in her. The largest man from the group stepped forward, an absolute giant, standing about 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighing no less than 280 pounds. His massive figure was covered in tattoos from neck to wrists. A thick black beard concealed half of his face, while small pig-like eyes peered out from under bushy brows. The man's leather vest was adorned with patches from the Devil Riders Club, one of the most dangerous and influential biker gangs in the southwestern United States. These people controlled drug trafficking from El Paso to Los Angeles, had connections in the police and judicial systems, and were notorious for their particular brutality towards those who stood in their way. On the giant's chest was a patch reading "President," indicating his status as the leader of the local chapter of the club. On his right arm was a tattoo of a cobra coiling around a skull with burning eyes. On his left was an eagle tearing apart the American flag with its claws. Such tattoos were worn only by those who had killed people with their own hands. "Hey, pretty girl." His voice was rough and hoarse from years of smoking and drinking. Each word carried the weight of years of prison slang and street violence. "Such a little girl and such a big machine. You sure you can handle that beast?" Sarah didn't lift her eyes from the fuel pump. During her years of military service, she had learned to recognize predators at first glance. This man was a professional killer for whom human life meant nothing. The best tactic with such people was to avoid confrontation while there was still a chance. "I'm handling it just fine. Thanks for your concern," she replied in a calm, neutral tone. "I'm Jake." The man stepped closer, invading her personal space. "Jake Rodriguez. You might have heard of me. I'm something of a local celebrity around these parts." The name was indeed familiar. Jake Iron Rodriguez had appeared in crime reports for over 20 years. Murders, drug trafficking, extortion, corruption of public officials. This was far from a complete list of his achievements. He had been arrested several times, but each time he got out thanks to good lawyers and bribed witnesses. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Jake continued, not receiving a response to his introduction. "It doesn't matter," Sarah replied curtly, continuing to fill up the tank. The other members of his gang appeared behind Jake. Sarah quickly assessed each of them, a skill honed over years of service in combat zones, where the ability to accurately evaluate an opponent often meant the difference between life and death. The second was significantly younger than Jake, around 30, thin, with the nervous movements of a drug addict. A snake was tattooed around his neck, a symbol that he was ready to die for his gang. His hands were covered in prison tattoos, and instability was evident in his eyes, the mark of someone who used hard drugs. The third was the complete opposite, a stocky Mexican in his 40s with golden teeth and a long scar running across his left cheek. This scar could only have come from a knife fight, and its owner clearly emerged victorious. The Mexican's movements were confident and calculated. He was a professional killer. The fourth and fifth looked like typical middle-aged bikers, beer bellies, graying beards, arms covered in tattoos from wrists to shoulders, but their eyes revealed a long prison experience and a readiness for violence. These were people for whom beating or killing someone was a regular affair. "What are those dogs of yours?" Jake nodded towards Rex and Bullet. "Cute pups. I bet they guard your cargo well." At the mention of the dogs, a predatory note crept into Jake's voice. Sarah realized he was already sizing up potential prey and calculating ways to obtain it. Such people saw either a victim or an obstacle in every passerby on their path to profit. Rex let out a low warning growl, his muscles tensing beneath his dark fur. The scar across his left eye looked particularly sinister in the glow of the gas station's neon signs. This dog had fought real enemies of America in the mountains of Afghanistan and had no intention of backing down before local thugs. Bullet stood nearby, his eyes fixed on every movement of the strangers. Youth did not make him any less dangerous. In fact, the combination of energy, aggression, and professional training turned him into a deadly weapon. "Only when necessary," Sarah replied, finally lifting her gaze to meet Jake's. There was not a trace of fear in her eyes. 8 years of military service, 4 deployments to Afghanistan, participation in dozens of combat operations had taught her to face danger head-on. She had seen real monsters, terrorists who blew up schools and hospitals, drug lords who burned entire villages for unpaid debts, war criminals who traded in soldiers' lives. Compared to them, these bikers were merely rude thugs with inflated egos. "Wow, what a feisty one," chuckled the thin biker with the snake tattoo. His laughter was nervous and unnatural, a clear sign of drug intoxication. "I like them like that, with character. They're more interesting to break." "Listen, sweetheart," Jake leaned in closer, and Sarah caught the disgusting smell of his body, a mix of beer, tobacco, sweat, and unwashed clothes. "We just want to be friendly. You see, the road can be very dangerous for a beautiful girl like you, especially at night." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And we know this area like the back of our hands," he continued. "We know where to fill up cheaply, where to spend the night safely, where to avoid police traps. Maybe you'd like to have a drink with us. There's a decent bar inside. We could get to know each other better, discuss mutually beneficial cooperation." He emphasized the last words with a particular tone, clearly hinting at the nature of the proposed cooperation. "Not interested," Sarah replied firmly, putting away the gas pump and screwing the fuel cap back on. "I need to go. The cargo doesn't tolerate delays." "Oh, is that so?" Jake's face instantly darkened, the friendly mask slipping to reveal his true predatory nature. "So we're not good enough for such a princess? You think you're better than us?" The situation began to escalate rapidly. The other bikers formed a semicircle, cutting off Sarah's direct path to the truck cabin. Rex and Bullet sensed the change in atmosphere and stood ready for action. Their growling grew louder and more threatening. Several other patrons at the gas station noticed the brewing conflict and hurriedly moved away. The cashier in the shop nervously glanced in their direction, but was in no hurry to call the police. People in such places preferred not to get involved in others' problems. "Step back," Sarah warned, her hand instinctively reaching for her waistband, where a licensed Smith & Wesson .40 caliber was concealed beneath her jacket. "I'm warning you for the last time." "What are you going to do?" Jake sneered, taking another step forward. Now there was no more than 3 feet between them. "Sick your mutts on us? Or maybe complain to the cops?" He glanced back at his buddies and burst into a coarse, unpleasant laugh. "Hey guys, the princess thinks she can threaten us," he shouted. "Apparently she doesn't know who the Devil Riders are." "Jake's right," chimed in a stocky Mexican, his gold teeth glinting in the neon lights. "Pretty girls should know their place, and the place for pretty girls is to entertain real men." "We could have a great time," added one of the older bikers, lewdly licking his lips. "Long and hard. And then, if you're a good girl, we might even let you go." "Maybe." The last words sounded like a direct threat of rape and murder. That was a serious mistake. Calling battle-hardened dogs mutts and threatening their owner with sexual violence meant crossing a red line, beyond which war begins. In Sarah's eyes, the cold fire flared up that the Taliban in the valleys of Afghanistan knew all too well. The fire of a professional soldier ready to kill enemies without hesitation or regret. "Last warning," she said quietly, but so clearly that each word struck like a hammer on an anvil. "Step back, right now." "What are you gonna do, bitch?" Jake stepped forward and tried to grab her hand. "What can you do against 5 real men?" He didn't have time to finish the phrase or touch Sarah. She unclipped the leashes in one swift motion and gave a quiet but clear command: "Guard." The result was instantaneous and overwhelming. Rex lunged forward with such speed that Jake didn't even have time to comprehend what was happening. The 87-pound trained killer stopped just inches from his throat, its powerful jaw snapping in the air, and a growl erupted from deep within its chest, causing the biker's legs to weaken. This was not an ordinary dog growl. It was the sound made only by military dogs trained to kill enemies on the battlefield. Deep, guttural, full of deadly threat. A sound that would make seasoned terrorists lose control of their bladders and bowels from primal terror. Rex stood in a perfect attacking position, front legs wide apart for stability, back legs tense for an instant leap, head lowered, eyes fixed on the opponent's throat. His fur bristled, making the already imposing dog even more intimidating. Saliva dripped from his bared fangs onto Jake's boots. Bullets simultaneously took position on the right, cutting off the retreat of the other bikers. His youth was compensated by rage and impeccable training. The dog's eyes burned with the cold fire of deadly determination, and every muscle in his body spoke of readiness to attack. The fur on Bullet's neck stood on end, his fangs bared in a threatening snarl, a continuous growl emanating from his throat. He was younger than Rex, but no less dangerous. His body was a perfect killing machine, shaped by millennia of evolution and honed by years of military training. "Holy shit!" exclaimed a tattooed biker with a snake on his neck, backing away. His drug-fueled bravado evaporated instantly at the sight of 2 enraged predators. "These aren't dogs. They're some kind of wolves." "Not wolves," Sarah said coldly, crossing her arms over her chest and observing the scene with the professional calm of a combat officer. "These are military dogs, Rex and Bullet, veterans of the Afghan war. They are trained to kill terrorists and find explosives. Do you want to test their combat skills on yourself?" She paused briefly, allowing the information to sink in for the bikers. "Rex has neutralized 4 opponents in close combat," she continued as if discussing the weather. "His method is a chest jump with immobilization. The opponent loses the ability to resist in a matter of seconds." Jake tried to maintain his composure, but his hands betrayed him, shaking. Rex stood so close that the biker could feel the beast's hot breath on his neck. One careless gesture, one sudden movement, and the powerful jaws would clamp down on his throat with a force of 300 pounds per square inch. "And Bullet specializes in group operations," Sarah continued unflinchingly. 3 opponents at once. His best result. His method is immobilization using pain holds." You can't just set them on us," Jake stammered, trying not to make any sudden movements. "I can," Sarah replied firmly. "Article 217 of the Texas Penal Code, self-defense against the threat of rape. I have witnesses and surveillance cameras from the gas station that recorded every word you said. You surrounded me, threatened sexual violence, behaved aggressively." She pointed to the security camera installed above the entrance to the store. "Any court will side with me," she continued, "especially when it learns that you threatened a veteran of the Afghan war and tried to obstruct the delivery of medical equipment for wounded soldiers." Sarah paused again, relishing the confusion on the bikers' faces. "Moreover," she added, "these dogs have special federal status. They are officially recognized as war heroes and are protected under the veterans' law. An attack on them is equivalent to an attack on active military personnel. This is a federal crime, gentlemen. From 15 to 25 years in a maximum security prison." Rex stepped forward, and Jake involuntarily jumped back, nearly falling. The scar over the dog's eye, illuminated by the neon lights of the gas station, looked particularly sinister. This scar was a reminder that Rex had already fought real enemies and had always won. All right," mumbled the young biker with the snake tattoo, his voice trembling with fear. "Jake, maybe enough? This psycho isn't worth it. She has beasts, not dogs." "Shut up, Ricky," Jake barked, but his authority had already been seriously undermined. The group of men, who were used to intimidating others with their appearance and reputation, found themselves face to face with an opponent who not only was unafraid, but also had a clear advantage in weaponry. The stocky Mexican nervously felt the knife at his waist but understood the futility of cold steel against two enraged dogs. The dogs moved faster than a man, their teeth sharper than any blade, and their experience in real combat gave them an edge over any street fighter. Sarah stepped forward, and the dogs moved with her as one. Their movements were synchronized, honed to perfection. Years of joint service in the most dangerous regions of the world had made them a single fighting machine. "You have 60 seconds to get on your bikes and get the hell out of here," Sarah said in a steady, cold voice of a professional killer. "After that, I will give the command to attack, and believe me, these guys don't miss and take no prisoners." She glanced at the watch on her wrist. 55 seconds, she announced. The silence stretched for several agonizing moments. Only the heavy breathing of the bikers, the low, threatening growl of the dogs, and the distant noise of cars passing on the highway could be heard. Then young Ricky couldn't hold out any longer and quickly headed for his motorcycle. "Where are you going, coward?" Jake barked. "Screw this, boss," the guy replied without turning around. "I'm not going to become dog food because of some chick, even if she's really hot." 40 seconds, Sarah announced. Following Ricky was one of the older bikers, then another. A stocky Mexican hesitated, glancing between Jake and the snarling dogs. In his eyes, an internal struggle between fear and loyalty to the leader was evident. 30 seconds. The Mexican made his decision and also headed for the motorcycles. Now only one ally remained with Jake, the one who had threatened Sarah with rape. 20 seconds. "This isn't over, bitch," Jake hissed, slowly retreating. His face was twisted with a mix of rage and humiliation. "We know these roads better than you. We know every gas station, every motel, every truck stop from Texas to California." 10 seconds. "We'll see you again, Princess," he added, throwing her one last spiteful glance. "And next time, your dogs won't help you." 5, 4, 3. Jake turned and quickly walked to his Harley. The last biker ran after him, stumbling with fear. The motorcycle engines roared to life, and within moments the entire gang drove off the gas station's property, disappearing into the deepening twilight of the Texas night. Only when the sound of the exhaust pipes finally faded into the distance did Sarah allow herself to relax. Rex and Bullet approached her, their tails wagging slightly, a restrained display of joy at a mission accomplished. "Great job, boys," Sarah whispered, kneeling down and hugging both dogs. "I thought I wouldn't have to use your skills so soon after the army." Rex licked her cheek with his rough tongue, while Bullet rested his massive head on her shoulder. They sensed that the immediate danger had passed, but remained alert. Years of combat experience told them that people like Jake Rodriguez do not forgive humiliation, and they were absolutely right. An elderly truck driver approached them, a man in his 60s wearing a faded plaid shirt and a baseball cap with a trucking company logo. His face expressed a mix of admiration and concern. "Ma'am," he said, removing his cap, "that was the Devil's Riders, a very dangerous gang. Jake Rodriguez is a real psychopath. He's killed at least a dozen people, but he's always managed to escape punishment." "Thank you for the warning," Sarah replied, getting up and attaching the leashes to the dog's collars. "You do understand that he won't forget this humiliation?" the truck driver continued. "He has connections in the police, among judges, in the prison administration. He can make your life very unpleasant." "Let him try," Sarah replied coldly. "I have some skills too." The truck driver shook his head and walked away. Sarah headed toward the truck cab, but she was stopped by the voice of the gas station cashier, a young Mexican man about 25. "Señora," he shouted, running out of the store. "Wait." Sarah turned around. The guy looked scared but determined. "My name is Carlos," he said, approaching her. "I saw what happened. I have information that can help you." "What information?" "Jake has already called his people. I overheard the conversation through an open window. They're planning to ambush you on the road to the New Mexico border." Sarah frowned. "When?" "They know your route. They know you're heading to Phoenix. There's only one road through the mountains, and they'll be waiting for you there." "Why are you telling me this?" Carlos looked down. 2 years ago, they killed my brother. They said he saw too much. Since then, I've been waiting for a chance to get revenge." Sarah studied the young man's face. In his eyes, she saw genuine pain and a thirst for justice. "Is there a detour?" she asked. "Yes, an old road through the abandoned Fort Madison military base. It's 100 miles longer, but safer. Jake doesn't know about her." Carlos quickly sketched a route on a napkin. Turn right here and 20 miles later there will be a sign for Fort Madison. The road is bad, but your truck will make it. Thank you, Sarah said, tucking the map into her pocket. Take care, Carlos. Good luck, Senora, and be careful. Jake won't forgive such humiliation. Sarah climbed into the cab and started the engine. Rex and Bullet took their places, but both dogs sensed their owner's tension. They understood that the real danger was just beginning. The truck pulled out of the gas station and headed down the highway toward the state border. There were no pursuers visible in the rearview mirrors, but Sarah knew this was temporary. People like Jake Rodriguez don't give up after the first defeat. 20 minutes into the drive, she saw the sign Carlos had mentioned. Fort Madison, 20 miles. Sarah turned onto a narrow dirt road leading into the mountains. The road was indeed terrible. Broken asphalt, potholes, sharp turns. But the truck managed, slowly climbing uphill. Rocky slopes covered with cacti and thorny bushes stretched on both sides. Half an hour later, Sarah's phone rang. An unfamiliar number with a Texas area code lit up the screen. Hello? Sarah Mitchell? The voice was official, dry. Yes, this is me. And who are you? Detective Harris, El Paso County Police. We have a report that you assaulted a group of peaceful citizens using dangerous animals. Sarah's heart sank. Jake was acting faster than she had anticipated. That's a lie, she protested. They surrounded me, threatening to rape me. Ma'am, we have witnesses who claim otherwise. According to their statements, you unleashed your dogs on a group of bikers who were just trying to introduce themselves. Witnesses? Sarah couldn't believe her ears. What witnesses? There were only the bikers. Ma'am, we have statements from 3 independent witnesses, including a gas station employee. All of them corroborate the victim's version. Sarah realized that Jake had bribed or intimidated people. In such small towns, this was common. Ma'am, you need to return to El Paso immediately for questioning, the detective continued. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of aggravated assault and possession of dangerous animals without the proper license. Dangerous animals? Sarah's voice trembled with indignation. These are military veteran dogs. They have all the paperwork, medals, health certificates. Ma'am, dogs that attack people are subject to immediate seizure and quarantine. If their aggression is confirmed, they will be euthanized according to Texas state law. Euthanized? Sarah felt her world crumbling around her. You can't take my dogs. They were defending themselves. Ma'am, if you do not return voluntarily within 3 hours, we will be forced to place you on the federal wanted list. An emergency procedure for the seizure of dangerous animals will also be initiated using force. Sarah hung up the phone with trembling hands. It was a perfectly planned trap. Jake Rodriguez had weaponized the corrupt police system for revenge. Rex sensed her emotional state and quietly whined, resting his massive head on her shoulder. Bullet moved closer too, his intelligent eyes expressing concern and readiness to protect his owner at any cost. What are we going to do, boys? Sarah whispered, stroking their heads. They want to separate us. Forever. At that moment, the phone rang again. A familiar name lit up the screen. Mike Thompson. An old Army friend, a sergeant first class with whom she had served in Helmand Province. Mike was one of the few who knew the true story of Rex and Bullet, who understood what these dogs meant to Sarah. Mike! Sarah, damn it, what's going on? I just got a call from the military police headquarters. They say you're wanted for assault with combat dogs? It's a setup, Mike. A gang of bikers tried to rape me. The dogs protected me, and now they've turned everything upside down. They bribed witnesses, police officers. They want to take Rex and Bullet and put them down. Shit, Mike cursed. Listen, I know something about that Detective Harris. He's not clean. He plays poker in underground clubs in Juarez, and he has big debts to the Mexican cartels. If this Rodriguez got to him with money, what should I do, Mike? They want to kill my dogs. Silence lingered on the other end for several tense seconds. Then Mike quietly said, There's one possibility. Remember Captain Davis from the division headquarters? He now works at the Federal Emergency Agency. If I explain the situation to him, maybe he can classify your cargo as federal importance. Medical equipment, but it's already important. Sarah, there are wounded from the last operation in Syria at that veterans hospital in Phoenix. Among them is our old friend, Sergeant Martinez. Remember him? The guy who always shared cookies with your dogs. Sarah certainly remembered. Jorge Martinez, 23 years old, a cheerful Puerto Rican who joined their team 2 months before that fateful day in Kajaki when everything changed forever. "What happened to him?" she asked, although from Mike's tone she already suspected the news was bad. "Severe injuries to the chest and abdomen. Shrapnel from an improvised explosive device damaged his lungs and liver. He desperately needs one of the ventilators from your cargo. Without it, he won't make it to tomorrow." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling her heart tighten. Another life hung by a thread. Another young soldier was dying far from home. "If I file the paperwork correctly as an emergency military supply to save a service member's life, your cargo will automatically receive federal status," Mike continued. "That means federal jurisdiction. The local cops won't be able to touch you." Hope ignited in Sarah's soul. "Mike, you can save our lives. Don't celebrate too soon. It will take a few hours and we're short on time. Besides, I need to reach Captain Davis, and he's currently in Washington at a security committee meeting. How much time do I have to Phoenix? 8 or 9 hours if you drive nonstop. But they'll mobilize all the cops in 3 states. You need to find a safe place to wait while I work on the paperwork." Sarah looked ahead. The road led to the abandoned military base, Fort Madison, a perfect place to hide and wait for help. "I have a place," she said, "an old military base in the New Mexico mountains. It's been abandoned for over 10 years, but I remember the locations of the secret bunkers." "Great. Hide there, and I'll work on the papers and connections." And Sarah, "Yes? Be extremely careful. These bikers won't forgive such humiliation. They might try to take justice into their own hands without waiting for the police." The connection dropped, and Sarah was once again left alone with her thoughts and her loyal companions. Ahead lay a night full of dangers and uncertainties, but she was ready to fight for her family to the last drop of blood. The truck slowly climbed the winding mountain road, its powerful engine straining on the steep inclines. Rocky slopes rose on both sides, covered with low pines and patches of cacti. The moon was nearly full, casting a ghostly silver light over the desert landscape. Fort Madison was built in 1952 as a training base for mountain infantry units. During the Cold War, soldiers were prepared here for possible operations in the mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Ironically, 50 years later, American soldiers were indeed fighting in those very mountains, but against entirely different enemies. The base was closed in 2012 as part of a military budget reduction program. Most of the buildings were demolished, the equipment was removed, but the underground structures remained untouched. The system of bunkers and tunnels carved into the rock was too expensive to dismantle and too useful for complete destruction. Sarah knew this place firsthand. In 2010, she underwent a dog handler training course for mountain operations here. 2 weeks of intensive training in conditions closely resembling those in Afghanistan. It was here that she first met Rex and learned to understand his signals. After an hour's drive along the mountain road, the ruins of the former military base came into view. Rusty gates hung on a single hinge, the guard booth was destroyed, and the asphalt paths were overgrown with weeds. Nature was gradually reclaiming the territory from human civilization. Sarah entered the base and directed the truck to the far sector where the ammunition warehouses once stood. It was there that the most reliable underground shelters capable of withstanding a direct hit from an aerial bomb were located. She parked the truck between 2 semi-ruined buildings, where it was out of sight from the air and access roads. Then she turned off the engine and allowed herself a moment to relax. "Well, boys, welcome to our temporary home," she said to the dogs. Rex and Bullet jumped out of the cab and began to explore the area. Their noses eagerly inhaled the air, analyzing the scents. It still smelled of metal, oil, and human presence, despite years of neglect. Sarah opened the trailer and checked the cargo. The medical equipment was in order. The climate control system maintained the necessary temperature, and the sensors showed normal humidity and pressure parameters. Each of these devices could save a human life, and Sarah was determined to deliver the cargo to its destination. The phone rang again. This time it was an unfamiliar number with a local area code. "Don't answer," Sarah thought at first, but curiosity got the better of her. "Hello? Ms. Mitchell?" The voice was female, young, scared. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jessica Sanchez. I work as a dispatcher for the El Paso police. I shouldn't be calling you, but Detective Harris received a large sum of cash tonight, right after that biker, Rodriguez, came to see him." Sarah's heart raced. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have a dog, a German shepherd named Max. If someone tries to harm me or him," the girl's voice trembled with emotion, "it's wrong. What they plan to do with your dogs is the murder of innocent animals. What exactly are they planning? Tomorrow morning, an extended warrant for your arrest will be issued. All roads in the region will be patrolled by enhanced units. Rodriguez has paid not only Harris, but also the county sheriff. Sarah felt a chill in her stomach. An extended warrant? What does that mean? Not just for dog attacks. Harris added charges of resisting arrest and attempting to evade justice. And your dogs, the girl paused, they will be declared a danger to society. Forced seizure followed by euthanasia. Rabid, but that's absurd. They have all their vaccination records. Rodriguez has a veterinarian on his payroll, Dr. Richard Fisher. He will sign any documents for the right price. He has already signed a statement that your dogs showed signs of hydrophobia and aggression. Hydrophobia? Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Rex and Bullet love water. They swim in every body of water they see. Ms. Mitchell, you need to disappear. Forever. Or what? Or by tomorrow evening, your dogs will be dead, and you will spend the rest of your life in federal prison? The connection was lost, leaving Sarah in shock. The situation was far worse than she had anticipated. This was not just revenge from an angry biker. It was a carefully planned extermination using a corrupt legal system. Rex approached her and quietly whined, sensing his owner's emotional state. His intelligent brown eyes looked at her with such trust and love that Sarah's breath caught in her throat. This dog had saved her life in Afghanistan at least 10 times. He pulled her from under artillery fire when she was wounded by shrapnel in the leg. He found 17 improvised explosive devices that could have killed her entire team. He stayed with her in a destroyed bunker for 5 days without water or food when they were cut off from the main forces by the Taliban. And Bullet was her child in the most literal sense of the word. She had raised him from the first days of his life when he was a helpless puppy who had lost his mother. She bottle-fed him, taught him to walk, hunt, and fight. He trusted her more than himself, ready to die at her first word. "No one will harm you," she whispered, tightly hugging both dogs. "I swear to you on my life, no one will ever hurt you." But even as she spoke those words, she understood that against an entire system, 3 fugitives could do little. A plan was needed, help was needed, time was needed. Sarah retrieved the emergency backpack from the cabin, a standard survival kit that she always carried with her. Military rations, medications, tools, a portable radio, night vision goggles, a bulletproof vest, and enough ammunition for a serious shootout. She also took a special bag with dog gear, tactical vests for Rex and Bullet, protecting against knife wounds and small caliber bullets, a portable water bowl, concentrated food, and a first aid kit for animals. "Let's go, boys," she said, putting the dogs in their combat gear. "I'll show you our shelter." The entrance to the underground bunker was 100 yards from the truck parking area, disguised as an ordinary manhole cover. Sarah remembered the access code. It was changed every month during her service, but after the base was closed, the system was shut down, and the cover opened with a regular key. The descent led to a spacious underground room carved into the rock. The walls were lined with concrete, and the ceiling was reinforced with steel beams. Emergency lighting still worked from autonomous batteries, and the ventilation system provided fresh air. The bunker was designed for the long-term stay of 20 people. There were sleeping quarters, a food storage area, an arsenal, a radio room, and even a small medical station. An ideal place to ride out the storm. Rex and Bullet explored the new location, their noses investigating every corner. The smells here were old but familiar. Metal, concrete, gun oil, human presence. The dogs felt safe in this fortified shelter. Sarah set up the portable radio and tried to contact Mike. After several attempts, she managed to catch a signal. "Mike, can you hear me? Sarah, where are you?" "I called your phone but couldn't get through. I'm in the mountains in an old hideout. The cell service is poor here. Any news?" "Yes, and it's mixed. The good news is that I managed to contact Captain Davis. He agreed to help and is already working on the paperwork." "And the bad news?" "There are several bad news. First, the case has been handed over to the FBI. Second, a $50,000 reward has been announced for information about your whereabouts." Sarah whistled. $50,000 was a serious amount for these parts. For that kind of money, there would be plenty of people willing to turn in fugitives. "Third," Mike continued, "this Rodriguez isn't sitting idly by. According to my information, he has mobilized all his people. No less than 30 bikers are scouring the roads looking for your truck. 30? Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Against the three of us? Not quite three. I have one more piece of news. Captain Davis doesn't just work in FEMA. He also heads a special unit for combating organized crime in the border states. And what does that mean? It means that Jake Rodriguez has long been in their sights. Drug trafficking, arms smuggling, murders, corruption. Your situation gave them the perfect excuse for a major operation. Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Will they help? They already are. A special unit is heading to your area, but they need time to get there. At least 3 to 4 hours. Do we have that much time? I don't know. Rodriguez isn't a fool. He knows that time is working against him. The longer you're free, the greater the chances that the truth will come out. At that moment, Rex raised his head and became alert. His ears perked up, and a barely audible growl escaped his throat. Bullet also sensed something suspicious. Mike, I need to cut off, Sarah said quickly. It seems we have problems. Be careful. Check in every hour. Sarah turned off the radio and listened. At first, there was only silence. But then she heard the distant sound of motorcycle engines. Many engines approaching the base. Damn, she cursed. They found us. How was this possible? A GPS tracker on the truck? An informant among the locals? Or just a methodical search along all possible routes? Sarah quickly put on her bulletproof vest and checked her weapon. The Smith & Wesson was loaded and ready for action. In her backpack were 3 more magazines, 60 rounds of .40 caliber. A little for a serious shootout, but better than nothing. Rex, Bullet, prepare for battle, she commanded. Both dogs instantly switched to combat mode. Their bodies tensed, eyes focused. Breathing became more rapid. Years of training and real combat experience made their reactions automatic. The sound of motorcycles grew louder. Judging by the noise, there were at least 10 of them. Rodriguez had brought serious forces. Sarah climbed to the bunker exit and cautiously peered outside. In the moonlight, she saw the headlights of motorcycles moving around the perimeter of the base. They were methodically searching every building, every hiding spot. One of the bikers stopped next to Sarah's truck and shouted to the others, "Here! I found her truck!" Within minutes, all the motorcycles gathered around the rig. Sarah counted 12 bikers, all armed. Assault rifles, shotguns, handguns were visible. Serious firepower for such an operation. Jake Rodriguez dismounted from his Harley and approached the truck's cabin. He was dressed in full combat gear, a bulletproof vest, helmet, and AK-47 in his hands, clearly prepared for a serious war. "The bitch is somewhere here," he shouted to his men. "Search every hole, every basement. I don't need her alive, but I want the dogs intact." "Why do you want the dogs, boss?" one of the bikers asked. "I'll set up dog fights. People will pay good money to watch military dogs fight pit bulls. And when they stop being profitable, I'll feed them alive to crocodiles." Sarah clenched her teeth in rage. This scoundrel wanted not just to kill her, he planned to turn Rex and Bullet into entertainment for sadists. "Never," she whispered. "We'd rather all die here." The bikers began a systematic search. They were combing through the ruins of buildings, peering into every hole, flipping over debris. Gradually, they were approaching the concealed entrance to the bunker. Sarah had 2 options. Try to escape unnoticed through the emergency exit or engage in a fight from advantageous positions. The second option seemed preferable. Inside the bunker, she had the advantage of defense, and the narrow passages negated the enemy's numerical superiority. "Boys," she said quietly to the dogs, "it's going to be like in Afghanistan. Remember our signals?" Rex and Bullet took positions on either side of the bunker entrance. This was standard ambush tactics, honed through hundreds of operations against the Taliban. One of the bikers approached quite close to the concealed hatch. He was carefully studying the ground, looking for tracks or other signs of human presence. "Hey, Jake," he shouted. "There's something strange here. The grass is flattened as if someone walked here recently." Rodriguez approached the spot and examined it closely. His years of criminal experience told him that someone was hiding here. "Look for an entrance," he ordered. "A bunker or something like that." The bikers began probing the ground with the butts of their rifles. After a few minutes, one of them stumbled upon a metal hatch cover. "Boss, there's a hatch here." Jake approached and tried to open the cover, but it was blocked from the inside. "Hey, bitch," he shouted toward the hatch. "I know you're there. Come out and we can talk nicely." There was no response. "All right," Jake said. "Then we'll do it the hard way. Guys, get the grenades ready." Sarah realized there was no time for hesitation. If they bombarded the bunker with grenades, there would be no chance of survival. She quickly opened the hatch and shot the nearest biker. The bullet hit him in the chest and he fell, dropping his rifle. The others instinctively dove for cover. "Rex, Bullet, attack!" Sarah shouted. Both dogs sprang out of the hatch like two furry projectiles of death. Rex jumped on the nearest biker with such force that he knocked him off his feet and pinned him to the ground. Powerful jaws seized the man's gun hand, forcing him to drop the rifle. Bullet attacked a group of bikers on the right, his movements swift and precise. He knocked one down, then incapacitated the next, sinking his teeth into the thigh. The rifle fell from the biker's hands and he screamed in pain and fear. "Shoot the dogs!" Jake yelled, trying to aim his AK-47. But shooting at fast-moving targets in the dark proved to be no easy task. Bullets whizzed past while the dogs continued their work of incapacitating the enemies. Rex had already neutralized the first attacker and switched to the next, while Bullet methodically took down one biker after another. Sarah wasn't sitting idly by. She methodically fired her pistol, aiming for the legs and arms of the opponents. To wound, not to kill. Years of military training had not gone to waste. 2 bikers fell with limb injuries, losing the ability to fight. "Retreat!" one of the bikers shouted, seeing his comrades on the ground. "It's not worth it." Jake tried to continue the fight but realized the situation was critical. Half of his men were injured or incapacitated by the dogs, the others demoralized. "This is not the end," he shouted, retreating to the motorcycles. The surviving bikers helped the wounded get to their bikes and disappeared into the night. Only the rifles they had dropped in panic remained on the ground. Sarah quickly surveyed the battlefield. No one had been killed, but several bikers had serious injuries from dog bites and her precise shots. Rex had been shot in the back leg but could still move. Sarah ran up to Rex. The bullet had passed through the muscles of his hind leg without hitting the bone. Painful, but not life-threatening. "It's okay, old boy," she whispered, treating the wound with her first aid kit. "It's just a scratch." Rex licked her hand, letting her know he was fine. Combat dogs were used to injuries. This was common in Afghanistan. Bullet approached them, his muzzle bloodied. He looked wild and dangerous, but when he saw Sarah, a familiar loyalty appeared in his eyes. "Good job, boy," Sarah said, petting him on the head. She surveyed the battlefield. 8 dead bikers, including Jake Rodriguez. Serious legal troubles were now inevitable. Killing 8 people, even in self-defense, would lead to a lengthy investigation. Sarah returned to the bunker and contacted Mike over the radio. "Mike, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Rodriguez found us, attacked with a dozen bikers. We fought them off, but one of them is dead, their leader. The others are injured or fled." A long silence on the other end. "Shit," Mike finally said. "That changes things. Now they'll be looking for you not just for the dog attack, but also for murder." "It was self-defense." "I know, but one corpse is serious, especially if it's the leader of a biker gang. Even if it was self-defense, there will be an investigation." Sarah felt the ground slipping from under her feet. It turns out she went from the fire to the flames. "There's good news," Mike continued. "Captain Davis's team is already on the way. They'll be with you in 2 hours. Hold on until they arrive." "What if new bikers show up?" "I doubt it. Rodriguez brought almost all his men. The ones left behind are unlikely to want to share their boss's fate." Sarah hoped Mike was right, but fate had prepared another trial for them. An hour after the fight, Sarah heard the sound of approaching vehicles. At first, she was relieved. She thought it was help from Captain Davis. But when the cars appeared on the base grounds, it became clear that this was not a rescue operation. Several sheriff's police cars surrounded the area, turning on powerful floodlights. The loudspeakers came to life. "Sarah Mitchell, you are surrounded. Come out with your hands raised." Sarah realized that one of the surviving bikers had managed to inform the authorities of their location. Now she would be judged not only for the initial attack, but also for the murder of Jake Rodriguez. "Rex, Bullet, get ready for another fight," she told the dogs. But Rex couldn't move properly due to his injured paw, and the odds were uneven. Against an entire squad of police, 3 fugitives could do nothing. The police began to surround the bunker. Sarah saw figures in uniforms appearing around. But something was strange. They were not in a hurry to storm the hideout. "You have 10 minutes to think," came the voice from the loudspeaker. "We are ready to hear your version of events." At that moment, the radio crackled to life. Sarah, this is Captain Davis. Do you hear me? Davis, where are you? We're surrounded. I'm here among the police. Listen carefully. The situation is complicated, but not hopeless. Come out for negotiations. I managed to negotiate with the sheriff. How can I trust you? They want to put Rex and Bullet to sleep. They don't want to. The local authorities have been removed from the case. Now it's a federal investigation, and I'm in charge. Sarah hesitated. On one hand, she had no choice. On the other hand, how could she trust a person she hadn't seen in 3 years? Davis, if you're lying, I'm not lying. Come out. I have documents that will change everything. Sarah made her decision. She dropped her weapon, leashed the dogs, and slowly emerged from the bunker. Don't shoot, she shouted. I surrender. FBI agents quickly surrounded her, but they did not use their weapons. A man in civilian clothes approached her. Tall, thin, with gray hair and intelligent eyes. Sarah, he said, it's really you. Captain Davis? She scrutinized him. You've changed a lot. 3 years of federal service adds some gray, he smiled. But now is not the time for reminiscing. We need to sort out this mess. They put handcuffs on Sarah but treated her politely. They did not touch Rex and Bullet. They walked alongside their owner, carefully observing what was happening. What about my dog? Sarah asked. For now, nothing. They are under federal protection until the circumstances are clarified. They placed her in a helicopter along with the dogs. During the flight, Davis told her what had happened in the last few hours. We've been working on the Rodriguez case for 1.5 years, he explained. Drug trafficking, corruption, murders, but he always managed to evade responsibility. And what has changed? You have changed. Your situation gave us grounds for a large-scale operation. We arrested Detective Harris, veterinarian Fisher, several judges and prosecutors. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. So, will the charges against me be dropped? Not all of them. Killing 8 people is serious, even if it was self-defense. But I have witnesses who will confirm your version. What witnesses? Davis smiled. 3 surviving bikers. They are very willing to testify in exchange for leniency. The helicopter landed on the grounds of the federal building in El Paso. They took Sarah to a holding cell, and the dogs were placed in a special kennel at the building. The next 2 days passed in interrogations and procedures. Sarah recounted her version of events over and over again. The attorney appointed to her by the state turned out to be competent and eager to help. On the 3rd day, Davis came to her with unexpected news. Sarah, I have a surprise for you, he said. Do you want to see an old friend? The door of the cell opened and a man in a wheelchair entered. At first, Sarah didn't recognize him, but then she gasped. Jorge Martinez? Hi, Sarah. The young Puerto Rican smiled. I heard you're in trouble. Sarah couldn't believe her eyes. Sergeant Jorge Martinez, whom she thought was dying, sat before her alive, though confined to a wheelchair. But Mike told the truth. I really was on the brink of death, but the equipment from your cargo saved my life. Jorge explained how the respirator had kept him alive during a complicated surgery. The doctors fought for him for 12 hours straight, but in the end, they defeated death. It's true, I lost my leg, he added with a sad smile, but that's better than being dead. Why did you come? Sarah asked. To testify, to tell the court what you're really like, what Rex and Bullet were like in Afghanistan. Jorge became a key witness for the defense. His testimony about Sarah's military service and her dogs made a strong impression on the jurors. The trial lasted 3 months. The prosecution demanded a lengthy prison sentence for murder and assault. The defense insisted on self-defense and innocence. A pivotal moment came with the testimony of the surviving bikers. Under pressure from the evidence and in exchange for leniency, they revealed the whole truth about Rodriguez's plans. He wanted to kill her and turn the dogs into fighting dogs, one of them stated. He said people would pay good money to see military dogs fight to the death. This testimony drastically changed public opinion. Sarah transformed from a murder defendant into a heroine who defended herself and her loyal companions from sadists. But fate had one more surprise in store. On the last day of the trial, as the jurors prepared to deliver their verdict, an incident occurred in the parking lot outside the courthouse. The remaining members of the Devil's Riders gang attempted to attack Sarah as she exited the building after the session. Where's that bitch who killed Jake? The leader shouted, waving a gun. The courthouse security quickly reacted, but in the chaos, one of the gang members managed to fire a shot. The bullet was meant for Sarah, But Rex, sensing danger, jumped forward and took the hit. The old dog fell to the asphalt, breathing heavily. Several bullets struck him in the chest. The guards quickly subdued the attackers, but it was already too late. "Rex!" Sarah screamed, finally freed from her cell. She fell to her knees beside her dying dog. His eyes looked at her with the same loyalty, but his breathing grew more shallow. "Don't die," she whispered, cradling the bloodied head of the dog. "Please don't leave me." Bullet approached them and lay down next to his dying companion. He whined softly, as if saying goodbye to his friend. Rex struggled to lift his head and lick Sarah on the cheek. For the last time, his eyes closed and his mighty heart stopped. "No!" Sarah embraced the lifeless body of her dog and cried. Bullet rested his head on his paws and howled, a long, mournful sound, like a wolf to the moon. This howl echoed through the courtroom, and many in attendance had tears streaming down their cheeks. Rex's funeral took place at a veterans military cemetery in Texas, a honor bestowed upon few service animals. The state governor personally signed the permit for burial with military honors. Sarah stood by the grave in her military uniform, which she wore for the first time in 3 years. Next to her sat Bullet, whose collar now bore a new insignia, for heroism in protecting civilians. Captain Davis delivered a speech about service and sacrifice. Jorge Martinez recounted how Rex saved soldiers in Afghanistan. But for Sarah, all these words were merely background noise. She thought about the 8 years spent alongside this amazing dog, about the thousands of miles traveled together, about the dangers they had overcome side by side. "Goodbye, old friend," she whispered, throwing a handful of dirt onto the coffin. "Thank you for everything." The court acquitted Sarah on all counts. Self-defense was deemed justified, and her actions were considered heroic. Moreover, she was offered a return to military service with the rank of major. But Sarah declined. The army reminded her of losses, of betrayal, of the blood of the innocent in distant Afghanistan. She chose a different path. A year later, Sarah was once again behind the wheel of a truck, this time with the logo of the Rex's Memory Charity. Next to her was Bullet, no longer young, but still loyal. In the back was a cargo of special importance, medical equipment for a children's hospital in Mexico. The money for its purchase had been raised by veterans across America, who had learned the story of Sarah and her dogs. "You know, boy," Sarah said, glancing at Bullet, "I think Rex would be proud of us." Bullet barked softly in response. In his eyes was the sadness for a departed friend, but also the determination to continue serving. On the dashboard lay a small urn with Rex's ashes. Sarah carried it with her on every trip. Wherever she went, her faithful friend was always by her side. Ahead was a long road across the country, a dangerous road full of unknown threats. But Sarah was not afraid. She had Bullet, she had a purpose. She had the memory of one who gave his life to save others. The truck picked up speed, heading toward the border with Mexico. And somewhere in the sky above America, the stars shone particularly bright, as if Rex's spirit was blessing their journey. In the children's hospital in Tijuana, little patients awaited the equipment they needed. Every minute of delay could cost a child's life. So Sarah drove non-stop, as always, carrying hope to those in need of help. The story ended where it began, on the road. But now it was not a road of war or revenge. It was a road of mercy, a road of remembrance for fallen heroes, a road of ongoing service to humanity. Rex was gone, but his spirit lived in every saved cargo, in every protected life, in every new day of the fight for justice. And as long as there is evil in this world, there will always be those willing to fight it. And sometimes these heroes travel in 18-wheeler trucks with the most loyal friend in the world, carrying in their hearts the memory of one who gave his life for others. In Sarah's pocket lay a photograph, herself, Rex, and Bullet against the backdrop of the Afghan mountains. All three were smiling, despite the dust and fatigue. On the back was an inscription in Jorge Martinez's handwriting. "True family knows no boundaries between species. It knows only love." This was the truth. Family is not about blood relations. Family is about the willingness to die for one another. And in this sense, Sarah, Rex, and Bullet had always been and would always remain a true family. The road stretched ahead, promising new adventures and new challenges. But whatever fate brought, they would face it together, alive and dead, but forever bound by ties of loyalty stronger than death. Somewhere in the sky above the Texas desert, a particularly bright star flared up, as if Rex was signaling to them, "I am with you, always." and the truck disappeared into the night, carrying the last two members of the legendary team toward new feats in the name of those who could no longer fight for themselves.